to Dad. Just get on with it, he would say. Occam's razor. One should choose the simplest explanation, the one requiring the fewest assumptions and principles. William of Occam, 14th century English philosopher. Preface to the third edition. Dysfunction is gold. This book is different. Its main thrust goes beyond providing new information, although it does that. The root purpose of Work the System is to guide you to a new way of perceiving your life, so you can gain better command of it and therefore be better able to get what you want. There will be a mechanical adjustment in the way you see your world. And when this profound shift occurs, systems methodology will make irrefutable sense, and your work and life will never be the same. I like to call this mini-awakening Getting It, and I describe what it is and how to achieve it in Part 1. The nutshell premise? Your life is a collection of individual systems. To whom is this book intended? It's for anyone who runs a business, from the founder of a brand new mom-and-pop startup to the seasoned CEO of a multinational. At either extreme and in between, the tenets apply uniformly because life's fundamental mechanics work the same all the time, everywhere. This is about acquiring a better view of reality's universal simple mechanics, to viewing the machinations of your world with more precision. Here's an insight that Mike, the owner of a $50 million multinational and one of our one-on-one consulting clients, gave me not too long ago. Sam, I now see that dysfunction is gold. Mike gets it and is exactly correct. If you are enduring the typical organizational inefficiency and then suddenly see that inefficiency and then confidently plow ahead step by step to eliminate it, you will immediately create additional bottom-line profits. Is there lots of dysfunction in your organization? Then there is lots of gold to be found. This increased cash flow has nothing to do with new sales or growth. The internal dysfunction is the gold that has been there all along. You just need to get busy excavating. I changed my life after a moment of insight, moving from a nightmarish, impoverished existence to a life of peace and prosperity. I now work 2 hours a week. Yes, I'm also financially secure now, with more than I need, which enables me to invest and share. I've had the same small business for 30 years, and this is the story of how I transformed it from a chaotic ordeal into a gold mine, pulling my staff upward with me while delivering the highest quality of service available in my industry. How I broke free, and how you can too, is described in detail. Believe me, if I can do it, so can you. Career-wise, you may have to do something different than what you do now in order to reach your goals of freedom and prosperity, but probably not. People who follow my strategy become super efficient, and most of them keep doing what they have been doing all along, as they finally leave the competition in the dust or suddenly streak up the corporate ladder. CEO of a billion-dollar enterprise? Let's go one layer deeper and question your foundational assumptions of how the enterprise functions. Let's dig out the waste and drive your company forward. Let's make it incredibly efficient. There are no gimmicks or mysterious theories in these pages, no Six Sigma-type complexities, no hype, no BS. What I discuss, including the getting it insight you will experience, will make perfect sense. Sound interesting? There are an infinite number of puzzle pieces out there, and for each of us to get what we want in our lives, it's just a matter of seeing those pieces, making a proper selection, and then assembling them in a way that produces the results we desire. And no, in focusing on the mechanical, you won't lose your humanity. Work the System is not rah-rah, pumping you up but offering nowhere to go. After you achieve the system's mindset perspective, I carefully explain the necessary mechanical steps for creating prosperity and peace in your life, in parts 2 and 3. There's more beyond the book, too. I'll talk about that in a minute. Despite the sly title, there is nothing sinister in these pages, and there's nothing that won't seem logical. It's a simple message presented in a thorough way. Contrary to popular opinion, the workings of the world make perfect sense. There is an inherent order that is stunningly evident if one drops preconceived notions and quietly observes life as it is. By internalizing this new insight, by going one layer deeper, it's an easy matter to arrange things in order to get what one wants. The added bonus? Speculative, menu-driven presumptions about work, business, politics, health, and relationships drop away, to be replaced by common-sense gut certainties. The most satisfying outcome is that life theory and hard reality become congruent. This means one is no longer swayed by peers, public opinion, what feels good, or moment-to-moment expediency. Addressing raw reality head-on, one confidently makes up one's own mind about things, and then consistently applies that certainty to the real world. And it works. It works because reality operates in the same way everywhere, all the time. It's been 6 years since I first released Work the System, and at the time I hoped it would help readers get better control of their businesses and their lives. At the risk of braggadocio, that has happened. More on this soon, too. I'll say this here at the beginning. Each of us has a mechanical aspect and an emotional aspect. And contrary to a boatload of pop psychology books, tapes, videos, etc., I say it's a good thing to separate the two. If we don't, things get muddied and neither aspect turns out so well. And I take issue with the presumption that the road to freedom and prosperity begins with the elimination of personal emotional hang-ups. Work the System is about straightening out the mechanics of a life first. Get the machine right, and emotional improvement will tag along naturally. Can one have emotional hang-ups together with wealth and freedom? Of course. We all know people like that. But hang-ups or not, obtaining wealth and freedom will go a long way toward making life better. Yes, you can flip a switch and your life can become what you want it to be. This is because the switch is located in your head and therefore is readily accessible. A central fact remains. 90% of people struggle. On the surface, it seems that this is because they don't set direction, they don't get organized, and they spend too much time on trivialities. Well, that's true. Yet, when the mechanisms of life one layer deeper are seen, the root causal reason for the struggle becomes strikingly obvious. Still, because most of us spend our days coping with bad results, we don't think about submerging to a deeper place to make adjustments where those bad results are propagated. We humans just have a penchant for thrashing around on the surface, complicating what isn't complicated. I found that not everyone is interested in making more and working less. Some people want to make more while working the same amount of time or to just become more effectual at work and at home. And a large number of readers simply want to feel more in control of their lives, to have their worlds make more sense. Work the System serves all these purposes because it's about becoming more life efficient. And for the record, I love to work. Hard work puts me in the zone. And the work I do is creative, mostly one-time efforts that challenge and intrigue me. Relative to the second edition, is there new material in the third edition? No, not a lot. And my defense is that base reality doesn't change over time. It can just be better explained, which is the primary reason I assembled this third edition. I've made massive improvements in how it reads. There are literally thousands of small enhancements. I want the reader to get it easier and faster. Also, I'm finding some serious self-satisfaction in producing a better quality representation of what I believe. I'll borrow a common descriptive term for an important thread that weaves its way through the book: bottom up. Beginning with the first edition and approached from different angles, I've repeatedly touched on this concept but I've never given it a name. In a business, bottom up calls for system improvement ideas to be gathered at the customer and production levels and then passed on up through management for massaging and approval. It's not a declaration of democracy. I like to think a business is more of a benevolent dictatorship. But rather, it acknowledges the obvious. The best ideas come from the people on the front lines, the people producing the product or service, as well as those dealing with customers. I'll go here at the risk of proselytizing. In group presentations, as I begin to discuss my mechanical take on life, there is always some initial head-shaking from the follow your bliss contingent, of which I used to be a member, who feel they are called to rise above the mechanical world in order to focus on the spiritual. They believe the sacred pursuit is noble and superior and shouldn't be hampered by the restrictive job of dealing with petty issues in the here and now. My response, which invariably gets them head nodding instead of head shaking, is that we are all spiritual beings existing in a mechanical world. Until we learn to assertively steer the raw mechanics of our lives, we cannot get to a place that gives us the freedom to pursue what is beyond this concrete reality, because we will always be pulled back into it out of sheer necessity. We must get our physical world, with all its boring and base considerations, straightened out before it will allow us to focus on anything beyond it. Yet, having said that, this beautifully orchestrated mechanical existence that we experience from day to day can be perceived as a powerfully spiritual place if we can stop judging it and just see it for what it is. For ethereally inclined Westerners especially, it's a reverse tact to use the mechanical to enter the spiritual. Give it a shot if the opposite sequence hasn't met your expectations. And back to the subject of producing a better quality book. There is this system improvement thing. Work the System is about systems, and a book is a system in itself. It's an enclosed entity with a multitude of spinning wheels, all contributing to the singular purpose of that entity, that is, to accomplish a goal. And like our lives, a book is never perfect, and so there is always room for betterment, for system improvement. Herein lies a problem within the publishing industry that I have managed to circumvent. I have an interesting contractual relationship with my publisher, Greenleaf Book Group. It's fundamentally different from 99.9% of author-publisher deals because I have been able to keep the rights to my manuscript. I can tweak it to my own heart's delight when I feel the need. Of course, all the while paying close attention to the recommendations of Greenleaf's fine editors. Normally, getting published means the author's rights to the work are forfeited forever to the publisher. New authors, frantic to avoid permanent residence in the dustbin of the self-published, sell their souls to traditional publishing companies. The consequence is that, for starters, the original manuscript is handed over to an editor, who, depending on competence, style, personality, attitude, mood of the moment, degree of belief or interest in the subject matter, and experience, often editors for first book authors are just out of college, will often render the originally submitted manuscript unrecognizable. There's no recourse for the author. The editors have the final say on the content of the published book and any subsequent renditions. Here, says the new author to the publisher, I want to be published, so, yes, take my wife and do what you want with her. And beyond that profound abdication, good luck to the industrious scribe who wants to make changes and asks the publisher for another printing or, heaven forbid, requests a new edition. There's no going back to tweak the book without the publisher's approval, and 99% of the time, that approval won't be forthcoming. So, because I wanted precise control over this master statement of what I believe, I sought an alternative to the traditional publishing deal. I think you'll find the following chronology of the book's development interesting for that reason and for another. The history of Work the System is a perfect illustration of the systems mindset that is the centerpiece of the book itself. I self-published Work the System in the spring of 2008. This first printing was softcover. I had spent 2 years and thousands of hours getting the book right. It was the very, very best I could do at the time. It was impeccable, I thought, as the manuscript headed off to the printer, sans publisher. But when the boxes of new books arrived 6 weeks later, and I opened one, I gasped at a horrible miscalculation. The cover was an embarrassing gaffe. How arrogant was this, as a first-time author, to splash my photo across it? Then I opened a copy, and within seconds I blanched again because right there on the very first page I could see that things could have been said so much better. I continued to read. There were clumsy sentence structures, flat-out grammatical errors, poor flows of thought, and way too much repetition. Nevertheless, disappointed, I put the book out there because the message was solid. It sold pretty well, and a month later I could see there would have to be another printing, and this would give me the opportunity to make things right, to improve the system. Enthusiastically, I went to work tweaking, working day and night to fix the deficiencies, including getting rid of the cover photo. I hammered. The message was unchanged, but there was a lot to fix in the delivery, and it was a satisfying exercise because I was certainly going to get it right with the second self-published printing. This upgraded version would also be softcover, and I decided on a plain white glossy cover this time. The shipment arrived. I opened a box with confidence that this would prove to be the penultimate representation of what I believe about work and life. Whoops. For starters, my minimalist cover was amateurish. And inside, I found that despite the countless grammatical and sentence structure revisions and the continued soundness of the message, it was still amateurish. A few more months passed. Greenleaf Book Group accepted the book, we signed a deal, and preparation for a second edition, third printing ensued. This time, with 2 first-class professional editors via Greenleaf, the book's contents were shuffled around, and literally thousands of additional enhancements were made. It would be hardcover this time, to be delivered in the spring of 2009. When the books arrived, I was disappointed again. The new cover was awesome, but the experimental glossy cover material was too absorbent, instantly smudged by the fingerprints of anyone who picked up the book. And yes, so much inside could have been better said. For the fourth printing, 6 months later, again hardcover, we fixed the cover and made many more internal enhancements. The books arrived, and sure enough, I was disappointed once more. Ugh! But what I haven't said until now, and this is my key point in all of this, so pay attention here, is that because of my serial disappointments and the resultant jillion improvements that I made because of those disappointments, the book's quality had improved enormously. Despite my nitpicky self-recriminations, I had to admit that the second printing of the second edition wasn't half bad, due to the incessant system improvement gyrations of the previous 3 iterations. And yet, this fourth printing of the third edition has over 1,000 additional enhancements, and some additions, and my Greenleaf editors have again come in behind me to smooth things out even further. From the first edition through this fourth printing of the third edition, the message remains the same. It's the delivery that's improved. As I look back, it's clear to me that I should have known the book would never be what I wanted it to be the first time, or even the second, third, or fourth time. I knew better. In any case, I've had the unique opportunity as a first-time author to repeatedly tweak my book through a total of 8 printings, controlling the content completely while paying close attention to the advice of the top-notch Greenleaf editors and designers who have assisted me. The end result? Each additional version has been of better quality than the previous version. I tell you all of this to make a point beyond self-aggrandizement. Work the System's relentless evolution in itself is a perfect illustration of the system improvement process that is at the core of its own message. I'll also use this chronology to point out the beauty of personal freedom, of being able to chart one's own course. It's my hope that with this book you will not just develop the capacity to see the processes of your world from moment to moment, but you will also reach deep inside to discover that the key to reaching goals is to spend your time incessantly tweaking those processes, to make them better and better. Hunker down to relentlessly improve the systems of your world, and soon the fire killing will cease, and you'll have the time and money to enjoy the life you have always wanted. I hope you get that. There are many examples and illustrations in this book, but it was never meant to be a collection of stories or anecdotes. I wanted to go a layer deeper and really help my readers to make changes in their lives by providing a set of clear, tangible instructions to follow. Work the System is written to be a master guideline to working the systems of your life. It's thorough. But if you wish to go further, there is a multimedia course that I've created. It goes far beyond the book in scope and is designed to jar procrastinating business owners out of their state of inaction. It's a 1 to 3 month program. The time necessary to complete it depends on the complexity of the business and the owner's availability to make changes. It's called the Work the System Academy. For some readers, the Work the System method has literally become another department of their operation, such as accounting, IT, or sales. You could call it a blanket department because it overlays all other departments, making each one super efficient and drawing all of them together into a single super productive business machine. The Academy provides business owners with a fast, bolt-on installation of the method. 3 years ago, we launched a premier consulting arm, too. Interesting, working directly with the ownership leadership, some of the companies we've assisted have been much, much larger than we anticipated, up to $500 million in annual revenue, and they've sometimes been overseas in rapidly expanding markets. There is lower-cost group and individual coaching available, too. Also, coincidental to the release of this 4th printing of the 3rd edition, we've just released our documentation software. In the last 6 months, we've signed contracts for native language translations of the book with publishers in China, Russia, Japan, and Romania. I've dealt with multiple heavy personal family losses since the 3rd edition of this book was published in the spring of 2011. In this period, I've found certain overarching systems mindset concepts to be particularly supportive. Perhaps these suppositions could make a difference for you, too, personal earthquakes or not. You'll see each of them in more depth as you negotiate the book, but I'm thinking it would be good for you to start tracking these what the book is about threads now. Here, I'll keep it simple. 1. Reality. It's what is, whether you like it or not. Drop the menu, make up your own mind. 2. Your life is a collection of linear 1, 2, 3, 4 processes. The scary and wonderful thing? In this moment, every condition of your life was preceded by one of these step-by-step systems. This means the ones that are executing right now, seen and unseen, are determining your future. To create the future you want, in this moment, you must intensely manage these systems. The great results will come along almost spontaneously. 3. So, spend the majority of your work time in preparation, not execution. 4. What dysfunctional primary system is ubiquitous in business and personal life? It's one-on-one and group communications methodology, including frequency, speed, encapsulation, direction, and tools. The stupendous news? Bad communication is quickly repaired. The return on investment, astounding. 5. People say, everything happens for a reason. Well, that's true enough, but almost always the individual who declares this is referring to a pre-stamped life, a template existence, in which someone upstairs is orchestrating every occurrence. Something bad happens? That's okay. Everything happens for a reason. But being a puppet is not the divine endowment we've been given. Rather, it's the freedom to choose. 6. Point of sale. Get the wheels turning now. At first glance, this might seem a platitudinous abstraction. It's not. 7. Create value for others, everywhere, all the time. 8. Mind the gap. Silence breeds paranoia. Don't stop talking. And 9. The magic of life is right here, right now, in front of our noses. It's not out there somewhere. The colossal human error is the assumption that there is a cosmic inclination to chaos. The mechanical truth? There is a default propensity towards order. I'm a believer now, in my own way, and I thank God for every moment of this life. One more thing. Know that business is art. The ability to patiently ascend the learning curve, to relentlessly plow through enormous obstacles, to keep improving things no matter what, to ultimately create something of beauty out of the miscalculations of the past, to weather the storms, is a beautiful thing. A successful business is a self-sustaining entity of worth that creates value for all involved. As you stumble, walk, and sprint to that end, don't underestimate your accomplishment and your contribution.